Hello and welcome to MidnightSilverCrafters.com. My name's Steve and I'll be your host. Today in this video, we're going to learn how to make our own jewelry solder for soldering jewelry.
Okay, I'm out here at my bench, and today what we're going to be talking about is solder for jewelry. Jewelry solder. I'm talking about like silversmithing, soldering that you would use for sterling silver jewelry or silver jewelry. That's the type of solder I'm talking about today. We're going to be talking about silver solder. Okay, now if you know much about silversmithing and jewelry making, you know that this type of solder, it comes in all different forms. There's different forms of the solder, and it comes in different grades. And in silversmithing, you basically got like 4 grades of solder that you're going to be soldering with. You got hard solder, medium solder, easy solder, and then you have extra easy solder. Okay, but what's in this right here? What's in this little container right here? Now this is all solder. This is solder right here. Okay. Now I just made all this solder up, and it's real easy. I'm going to show you how you make your own solder. You can make all grades. You can make hard all the way down to super easy, but all of this is solder. Okay, now this is what they call sheet solder. Okay, and it's basically it's thin sheet, and then you can break it down and use it the way you want to use it. Now, the way I use this type of solder, like this sheet solder, I just heat up my part that I'm going to solder, and I just take this solder on my tweezers like this, and I just touch it down in where I want my solder. A lot of people, I guess, call that stick soldering, but this is just some sheet solder right here. This is hard solder, but over here, this is some wire. Okay, now this is wire I made. This is all solder. But to make this solder, it's dead simple. It's real easy, and I'm going to explain it, and I believe you'll be able to make it after you watch this video. All right, so all you're going to have to do is you're going to have to get you some silver. Now you got to use fine silver. Okay, but this solder is fine silver and brass. That's all. There's just 2 things: fine silver and brass. Now you're going to have to get you some brass. This is just a piece of brass. I bought this at a thrift store. It was silver plated, but I deplated it and just got it down back to the brass. But I've just been cutting off of this for my brass. Okay, now most of these silver plated items like this, you go down to the thrift store, you can find them. They're real cheap. They're either copper or brass. But you got to make sure you don't use copper. This is brass. But it's very simple. Now, I'm going to give you these numbers. You write down these numbers, or you can play this video back. But, you know, you might want to subscribe to my channel. And if you do subscribe, well, then you'll have access to a lot of good information, and this video as well. But it'd be great. I'd love to have you as a subscriber. I'm all about jewelry making, silversmithing, lost wax casting. I do a lot of lost wax casting and jewelry casting and stuff like that on this channel. But anyhow, so we're going to start now. I'm going to give you these numbers so you'll have them. You got hard solder is 75% silver. Now remember, the other number is the brass. Okay, so hard solder 75 silver, 25 brass. Medium is 70% silver. Okay, now that's obvious. 70% silver, you got 30% brass. Okay, now that's how it goes. So you got 75% for hard, 70% for medium. For easy, it's 65% silver, and for extra easy, it's 56% silver. So those are your numbers. Now, you can easily make it. All you got to do is you alloy silver and brass. Okay, now I'm going to show you real quick how you can do that. Right here, I got a little bit of casting grain in this box. Okay, this is casting grain. So what you do, you weigh it out. If say you need 75% silver and 25% brass, you take 100 grams. Out of 100 grams, you got 75 grams of silver. Now this is shot. Okay, this is not shot, but this is casting grain. Okay, that's casting grain. Now you have to do this with pure silver, fine silver, 999 silver. That's how you make this solder. 999 silver, okay, and brass. So we need 75% silver, that'd be 75 grams of silver. And then you get your brass. Now you cut your brass up into little pieces, just like this right here. Cut your brass up into little pieces. You weigh out your brass. And I'll just show you, I got a little potato here, crucible. But you'll put in 75 grams of silver, right here, 999 silver in here. And then you melt it to where it's just liquid, where it's flowing. You don't want to overheat it. And then you got your brass, but you cut your brass up into tiny, tiny little pieces. And you let your silver cool off. After you get it liquid, let it cool a little bit. And put a couple flakes of brass in. And the whole time you're doing that, you're stirring this with a carbon rod. Okay, a carbon stirring stick. Okay, and then you just keep adding your brass, and that's all there is to it. And then you keep mixing it as you're melting it. You keep mixing it with that graphite stirring rod. Okay, and then you just take and you pour that right into an ingot mold. See, I got my little ingot mold back here. But if you don't have an ingot mold, you can pour it into take a potato and slice it in half and cut some little channels, or just carve out the shape you want your ingots on the top of that potato, and pour your metal right on into those little cutouts, and make you a little ingot mold. Or you get an ingot mold like that, I think it's about 35 bucks. But that is it. That is how you make your own silver solder right there. This is all hard solder. I just made this. That's hard solder, but I've got lots of solder. I make it and sell it on my website, but you can make it yourself. I just told you how to do it. I gave you the numbers. You can play the video back. You can get your numbers, but that's it. You put your fine silver in. You weigh it out. You put your fine silver in. You heat it up till it's liquid and flowing, and then you let it cool off. And drop in a few flakes of this brass, real thin little flakes. You got to do this slow, and you keep heating, but don't overheat your silver, the whole mix. Don't overheat it. If it starts smoking, you done already overheated it. You don't overheat it. It's just like soldering. You don't overheat it. You control the heat. When you're making this alloy, you put your torch in. You get it to the temperature you want, and you back your torch off, and it's going to cool off, and then you come back in with the heat, in and out with the heat. That's how you do this. You let your silver cool down first, and then you drop your little flakes of brass in. They got to be little tiny pieces, maybe that size of a piece, or doesn't have to be that shape, but you know, just little bits of brass at a time, because you don't want to overheat the brass. If you overheat the brass, you're going to ruin it, okay? Trust me, because there's zinc in the brass, and that zinc will burn up. If you get it too hot, you'll burn it all up, and then it'll go into vapor, and it's not gonna, the alloy's gonna be messed up. So don't overheat the brass. That's why you heat the silver first, and you let it cool down, and then you drop some flakes of it in, of the brass, and you keep dropping little flakes in. Then you heat it back up, you stir it, drop a couple more flakes in, heat it back up, stir it. Then you get it good and liquidy, and then you pour your ingots, and then you take your ingots and you work them down into wire or sheet. I made some wire. I did this on my rolling mill. I made this wire and this little sheet, and then I took my metal shear and I just sheared some little strips, see? And I use these little strips for soldering. But that's how you make solder. Now, if you don't have a rolling mill, you can just take your little ingots that you get. See, here's one little ingot, little solder ingot right there. If you can see that. But you can just take these little ingots that you make and you put it on like an anvil or a vise or a good heavy steel block, or you can pound it and just get a good heavy hammer and you just pound this out. You pound these ingots out with a hammer. You heat them up with a torch. You anneal them. You get them real hot. You don't melt it. It's called annealing. Watch all my videos. I got a lot of videos on annealing. But you just anneal these little ingots and you can pound them out with a hammer and you got the same result. Or if you got a rolling mill, you roll them down into wire or sheet. But that's how you make solder. I gave you all the numbers. I'll give you the numbers real quick again. You can write this down, or go back. Just rewind the video and go back. But hard is 75% silver, medium is 70% silver, easy is 65% silver, and extra easy is 56% silver. And remember, the other number is brass. Get you some little brass, little snippets of brass. Just cut little small pieces. Now these are good. If you can look in thrift stores, you can find little brass pieces like this, real cheap. Or you can go to like a hobby shop, or you can go online and you can buy little brass for like hobby stuff, for like RC planes and stuff like that. They got little sheets of brass, little strips of brass you can buy. They're like real cheap. They're like $1. But a little bit of brass, you're not going to need that much brass. Because you're mostly silver, see? But there you go. That is exactly how you make every grade of solder, from hard all the way to extra easy. I think I've explained it pretty good, and I think that's going to be about it just for this video. But if you're new to my channel, I would love to have you as a subscriber. I think you really learn a lot. Right here, there's a basket. If you can see down in there, these are all wax patterns. This is all stuff that I make these patterns up and I cast all these. There's jewelry in here. There's bezels and pendants, and there's all kinds of stuff in this basket right here. Here's a little piece. I make this. This is a wax pattern. This is actually a little jewelry tool. I sell a lot of jewelry tools, so have a look over at midnightsilvercrafters.com. But this is just it's like a little doming block. But see, this is just a wax. This is a wax pattern. This is just a piece of wax. But I cast these these ones out of bronze, and they're really sweet. I mean, they come out, it's a real good hard metal. But anyhow, I make all these wax patterns, and I make the rubber molds for them, and I cast them, and I show how you can cast your own too. Real easy. I teach all that. I got a lot of homemade equipment. Just look at my videos and you'll see all my homemade casting equipment and everything. That I got a lot of good stuff here on this channel, and I would really love to have you as a subscriber. But if you do decide that you want to subscribe to my channel, if you'll just click on that little box down there, just go on that little comment box, and if you could just type in there "I subscribe," that'd be awesome, and it would really help me grow the channel. These are just a stack of these molds I make. See, these are just rubber jewelry molds. See, it's just a mold. If you can see that bird up there, right there, well, I do that type of casting. I made this bird here. He's made out of zinc from an old busted up skill saw, but I did that with sand casting, and I also teach that sand casting as well on the channel. But yeah, I'd love to have you as a subscriber. But well, there you go. Now you don't have to buy expensive solder, and it is very expensive to buy, and you can make your own and save a lot of money. You just need, you're going to need an ingot mold, like my ingot mold right there, a little handheld crucible, this potato. Now you're going to need a good torch. All right, my torch is sitting over there, but you're going to need a good torch for melting that solder. Okay, and then, that silver. But I just showed you exactly how you do it. And I don't think it'll be hard for you, because all you got to do is just, if you get stuck, go play back, look at the numbers. But it's just fine silver and brass, no other metals. The fine silver and the brass, when you melt them together properly, the way I told you to do it, without overheating either one of the metals, you're going to get high quality solder, jewelry solder, silver solder. This is all silver solder. Now it looks like it's it's oxide. Okay, now this gets oxides on it really quick. Especially here where I live, and I live in Florida, and we get like tons of rain, and there's so much moisture, and everything gets moisture on it out here, and everything gets oxides. All my stuff looks all rusted and everything, because it is. But no matter how much I oil it, it keeps getting rusty. But I think I'm going to end it here. All right, so I would love to have you as a new subscriber. So all right, I guess I'll talk to you in the next video.